First released in 2003, NCIS is one of the most popular TV drama series out there. Amazing action, cool characters, thrilling plotline, everything is gathered in those 19 seasons. It's clear to see why the series has lasted so long. The show is full of mystery, and there are a lot of details hidden in the storylines. So, in today's video, we will be talking about things most fans have never noticed about NCIS. First, let's talk about the opening scene. Did you know that the opening shot of the series, where the car is driving away from the camera, was not the scene intended for NCIS? That moment was actually taken from JAG, an episode called Ice Queen. In that episode, there was a Boy Scout troop and a murder involved. If you think about it, it makes sense that NCIS used some elements from JAG, because as you know, it was a direct spin-off of NCIS. It is noteworthy that there are 19 seasons in NCIS, whereas JAG only had 10 seasons. Did you know that NCIS was not actually filmed in Washington, D.C.? Fans are well aware that the headquarters of the series is based in the Washington Navy Yard location. But what many of you do not know is that NCIS was actually filmed in Valencia Studios, California. The big part of the interior scenes shown in the series are shot in Santa Clarita, including many lab scenes as well as some moments from the headquarters. Despite the fact that the region in Santa Clarita is known for its beauty, it does not really capture the historical significance of Washington, D.C. There are a couple of things the series does to get around the issue. So, there are agents who respond to cases in different parts of Virginia. For example, Norfolk. It does seem a bit confusing because the headquarters are still far away from these locations, and it would take a couple of hours to get there. So, it does not make a lot of sense. It is noteworthy that in episode Recoil from season 5, you will finally be able to see the real NCIS headquarters. Now we will talk about the Most Wanted board. Have you ever paid close attention to the Most Wanted board when characters walked into the NCIS headquarters? It is true that many of the crucial scenes took place in front of this board, and viewers would be distracted. So not many of you may have noticed that faces of people on this board would change from season to season. It is interesting that even though some of these faces on the board are fictional, most of them are of real criminals. One of the most noticeable examples was Osama bin Laden's picture, which was crossed with red lines shortly after his death. Now we will talk about the foof sound. Most of you must have noticed the foof sound in NCIS, as it is one of the most unique aspects of the whole series. The sound is basically the crucial part of every episode, and there are usually 5 or 6 foofs per episode. This sound first appeared in the NCIS Season 2 in an episode called Lieutenant Jane Doe, and most of the foofs include the main characters. So, what does this sound mean? This sound is an unofficial name or a concept that uses a black and white preview before every act. Its aim is to separate the series from other crime procedurals. Most of the time, the foof is black and white, but this is not the case for every episode. For example, at the end of the 7th season, in the episode named Code of Conduct, the foof sound was followed by a flash of color. The sound itself was the idea of the show's creator and a showrunner, Don Bellisario. He wanted to use something easy, simple, quick, and memorable so it would stick to viewers' conscious. He basically went to the studio and recorded the famous foof sound. Did you know that some of the NCIS characters were actually played by real family members? Well, we're diving into this and more right now, so don't go anywhere. So next up, some of the NCIS characters were actually played by real family members. There are a lot of characters we love in the series. What many of you may not know is that some of our favorite cast members are actually family members in real life. Don Bellisario's son, Michael Bellisario, who is also the creator and writer of the series, played the role of Charles Chip Sterling, a lab assistant who was hired to work with Abby Squito. Bellisario's daughter also played the role of McGee's sister. As it turned out, she is McGee's stepsister in real life, as Bellisario is the stepdad of Sean Murray, who played the role of McGee. Do you remember the flashbacks of young Jethro Gibbs? He was actually played by Sean Harmon, who is the real son of Sean Harmon. Vivian Bellisario, who in the first 2 seasons played the role of Gibbs' love interest, is Don Bellisario's wife and Sean Murray's mother in real life. Now let's talk about Tony's family history. Tony DiNozzo is the Playboy field agent from the series, one of the main characters in NCIS, played by Michael Weatherly. It is without a doubt that the actor has a lot of similarities with the character he was playing. Having so many things in common, they would make perfect friends, if those two ever crossed paths in real life. As you remember, Tony's life was not that easy in the series. He had to go through quite a lot. His father cut him out of the family fortune, and Tony was basically left with nothing. Did you know that this exact storyline was actually inspired by Michael Weatherly's real-life event and the relationship he had with his real father? Mind-blowing, right? His father did not really approve of Michael's decision to become an actor, so he decided to cut him out of millions of dollars he had earned after importing Swiss Army knives. Now we will talk about the role Harrison Ford turned down. Do you remember the very first episode of the first season when a naval officer had lunch with the president? As an unexpected turn of events, shortly after the lunch, the officer died. NCIS was notified and they had to investigate the death. There was an assumption that somebody wanted to kill the president, but maybe accidentally killed the officer. Not long after that, the Marine officer passed away in a very similar manner. Gibbs decided to return to Washington aboard the alternate Air Force One, shortly after investigating the second murder. When he was on board, he had to interfere with any harm directed against the president's life. He had to use floor plans from Air Force One. Agent Caitlin Dodd explained that she was unable to provide them to Gibbs. This is how he responded. "Come on, I saw all this in a Harrison Ford movie." It is very interesting that Harrison Ford was actually considered to play the role Special Agent Leroy Jethro Gibbs, but surprisingly, he turned it down. And finally, we will talk about why people keep comparing NCIS to CSI. Not many of you may remember it, but when NCIS was first released, it had a bunch of different names. At first, it was named NCIS, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. Showrunners assumed that it would be for the best if viewers knew exactly what the series was about. That first title did not last too long and was soon renamed Navy NCIS. The second title also did not work because the word Navy was already in the acronym, so it would not make much sense if that version of the title had been approved. So as a final decision, the title of the series was chosen to be simply NCIS. At first, the showrunners were kind of nervous that people would mistake NCIS for CSI, a really famous crime procedural. Those two shows are very alike, and their names sound kind of similar. So the producers really wanted to give some explanation about this matter, so NCIS would be considered as a separate TV show. They decided to address this in the very first episode of the first season. Do you remember that moment when the security guard asked Tony DiNozzo whether NCIS had anything to do with CSI? To that, Tony responded, "Only if you're dyslexic." It is true that those two TV shows have the same genre, but when it comes to actually comparing, most of the fans pick the side of NCIS. Here is what the Quora user, Genwai Zagarak, writes about this matter. "There is no objective way to measure it, unless you want to compare ratings or something. I think NCIS is much better than any other cop show on TV, except Law & Order SVU. NCIS is better than SVU, but the gap isn't as wide to me as it is for other shows. NCIS has everything. It has comic relief, character banter, a detailed and complex plotline, as in the case plot. The overall plot from episode to episode is the same. Solve the case. But that's every cop show and more. The character dynamics are amazing. The show just has a certain spark that makes it hard not to like. I'm not a big CSI fan, I'll admit it, so maybe I am a little biased in my appreciation for NCIS. On this note, we end our video. These were just some examples of the things most fans have never noticed about NCIS. Do not forget to click the like button and subscribe. See you in the next video.